There is a place in the heart of Cappadocia where the earth swallows you whole, and logic becomes a fading whisper. Not a cave, not a simple tunnel, but a spiral carved so deep into the volcanic stone that it feels like a descent into another mind. You step off the sun-scorched Anatolian plateau and into a darkness that has been waiting for thousands of years. The light behind you shrinks to a pinprick, and then there is only the sound of your own breath bouncing off wet, ancient walls. This is the underground spiral of Gurimi, a hidden path that archaeology still cannot fully explain. Most visitors gaze upon the fairy chimneys above ground, never suspecting the inverted tower that descends directly beneath their feet. Each step you take is worn smooth by the feet of unknown pilgrims who made this same journey long before recorded history. The question that haunts every researcher is brutally simple. What were they walking toward? Or what were they walking away from? Official records label many of Cappadocia's underground cities as refuges from Arab raids, hiding places for early Christians fleeing Roman persecution. We tell ourselves that time reveals all things, but as you look upon this spiral, that comfortable illusion begins to dissolve. The known underground hubs like Derinkuyu and Kaimakli held thousands of people, complete with granaries, oil presses, and air shafts. They were utilitarian cities, literally upside-down worlds engineered for survival over months of siege. Yet this one tight, claustrophobic spiral in Gurima obeys none of the practical logic found in those vast subterranean colonies. It is too narrow for moving supplies, too ritualistically curved for a simple ventilation passage, and far too deliberate for a forgotten well. The rock itself tells the story of its creation. Soft volcanic tuff, shaped not by crude picks, but by patient, meticulous scraping. Geologists confirm the ashy stone was formed by ancient eruptions from Mount Archaeus, blanketing the landscape millions of years ago. Somewhere between the collapse of the Hittite Empire and the rise of the Phrygian kingdom, the first underground cavities were widened into rooms. Early accounts from Xenophon describe people living beneath the Cappadocian earth, but his words give no hint of ritualistic spirals. Mainstream history expected to find storage chambers, wine presses, or defensive bottlenecks that protected the communal underground cities. Instead, at the end of a forgotten, rubble-choked passageway, explorers found this singular, unbroken helix driving straight down into the bedrock. The initial discovery was met with the dry logic of excavation reports, a notation, a depth measurement, and a filing away in an academic archive. The archaeologist's lamp revealed alcoves cut into the walls at irregular intervals, far too small for a human body to rest in. Inside those alcoves lay only a sticky black residue and the faintest trace of ancient pollen, organic ghosts that refuse to be identified. Local whispers have long held that these niches held tiny oil lamps, their flames guiding the initiate deeper into the belly of Mother Earth. The acoustics of the spiral defy the physical laws of a simple cylindrical shaft, swallowing a shout within a few feet. Creep across the stone floor, however, and a tremor seems to travel infinitely downward, as if the earth itself is listening. A fragmented Hittite seal found near the entrance depicts a triple spiral's motif, an ancient symbol of the underworld rebirth, and the goddess Hana-Ana. So the hard evidence accumulates like puzzle pieces that do not fit: a seal, some ash, a pollen trace, and a path to nowhere. Where archaeology faltered, a darker layer of narrative began to fill the silence, one born from the landscape's own strange geology. Cappadocia is a land of inversions, where rock pillars stand like petrified giants, and entire cathedrals are carved ceiling up into the stone. In such a landscape, the idea of an initiatic path, a descent into spiritual death, and a reborn ascent is not merely myth but a geographical reflection. Some researchers theorize this spiral was a Phrygian mystery school device, a trial of silence and darkness for the priests of Cybele. The initiate would walk down stripped of all worldly identity and emerge a day later fundamentally rewired, filled with the secrets of the Magna Mater. The sticky black residue in the alcoves, they argue, was not lamp oil but honey, a chthonic offering to keep the underworld's guardians appeased. A conflicting hypothesis, ventured by a silent order of Byzantine historians, ties the spiral to the earliest Christian anchorites. These desert fathers and mothers sought what they called the heart's descent, a physical enactment of the soul's journey into the dark night of repentance. The spiral, then, was a punishing sensory deprivation chamber, a place to face your own demons in absolute subterranean silence. Convincing as that sounds, the seal at the entrance predates the birth of Christianity by at least 1,000 years. And so the spiral rejects any single clean theory, tossing them away like the wind scatters the dust in the valley above. A more unsettling proposal crept into fringe academic circles during the mid-20th century, linking the path to celestial observation. Its angle of descent, when mapped precisely, aligns with the helical path of the sun's deepest winter solstice shadow. Perhaps the alcoves were not for lamps at all, but for astrolabes, measuring the precise moment the star Sirius vanished from the sky. The notion is beautiful, but the spiral is sealed underground in total blackness, where no sunshaft ever pierced the stone. You could not watch the stars from a windowless throat of the earth, no matter how precisely you carved your instruments. That contradiction only deepens the psychological dread associated with the site, pitting logic against the palpable feeling of the place. As she dug deeper, the lead excavator, a pragmatic Armenian-French geophysicist named Anahit Varzapetian, began to record troubling subjective phenomena. After the 33rd step, she felt the wall was the floor, and the stair beneath her feet was a ceiling pressing her down into a crushing sky. Rational minds dismiss this as oxygen deprivation, a trick of the inner ear in the pure, suffocating silence. Yet indigenous Cappadocian guides refuse to enter the spiral with any source of electric light, relying only on a single beeswax candle. They claim that a harsh, artificial beam insults the darkness, causing the path to shift its geometry and close itself off forever. Legends of the vanishing initiate are told by elders in the village of Shavushin, a few kilometers from the Garema open-air museum. They speak of a young acolyte, Phrygian, or perhaps older, who entered the spiral to steal the goddess' secret without the proper purification. Halfway down, the spiral supposedly reversed, coiling him not deeper but sideways, folding him into a crack between the worlds. No bones were ever found, only one set of frozen footprints in the ancient ash, stopping abruptly at a point where the wall is seamless rock. The story is probably a cautionary fable to keep children away from the unstable tunnels, but the footprint fossil is displayed in a provincial museum. You might stare at that footprint and tell yourself there is a rational explanation, but the imagination is not so easily quieted. Human obsession has a way of magnetizing toward these voids, and the Garema spiral has claimed its share of broken sleep and ruined academic careers. Varzapetian abandoned her excavation in 1977, sealed the entrance with an iron grate, and refused to publish her final analysis. In a rare interview before her death, she stated only that the spiral does not lead to a physical chamber, but to a deliberate emptiness. The silence she found at the bottom was not the absence of sound, but a ringing, vibrating presence that made her teeth ache. There is a comfort in believing history is a solved puzzle until you stand at the edge of this silence yourself. The human mind craves a destination, a reliquary, a proof of purpose, a reason for the agony of the descent. At the bottom of the spiral, the stone bellies outward into a perfect dome-like room, completely empty except for a shallow, polished basin cut into the floor. The only thing present is a whisper of moisture, a slight mineral taste on the tongue, and the profound weight of the earth pressing down. It is an emptiness that feels more intentional than any decoration, a space carved solely to hold nothing but the traveler's transformed self. After hours in that black womb, the ascent is said to be a revelation, the light of the surface striking the climber like a physical blow. This psychotropic after effect has led some to hypothesize that the volcanic tuff releases a mild sustained emission of psychoactive radon gas. But the chemical tests always come back inconclusive, leaving the experience in the liminal space between geology and genuine mystical encounter. The spiral, then, is a wound in the logic of the modern world, a stubborn survival of an older relationship between the human soul and the underground. We have mapped the genome, photographed a black hole, and sent our mechanical eyes to the edge of the solar system. Yet a simple, empty hole in the ground can still dismantle every assumption we hold about our ancestors' inner lives. The shadows in the alcoves seem to shift under candlelight, drawing the eye not to what is there, but to what has just departed. Time behaves differently in the spiral, and a single cigarette's length of descent can feel like a full day's journey into a forgotten self. The clockwork of the surface world, the relentless march of seconds and decades, becomes irrelevant in that eternal, cooling darkness. As the soot from centuries of guide candles coated the ceiling, one mark was discovered that reignited the spiral's mystery entirely. Behind the soot, using multispectral imaging, a series of faint red ochre handprints became visible, all pressed by left hands, all pointing downward. They are too small for adult males, perhaps the hands of young women or adolescent initiates, their fingertips dragging in the direction of the abyss. The handprints do not signify fear, they seem to guide. A chorus of silent ancient voices calling you deeper into the stone. We are so accustomed to looking up at vaulted cathedrals, aspiring toward the light, toward the stars. But this is a cathedral of descent, an architecture of humility that acknowledges the underworld as the source of all rebirth. At the edge of human knowledge, the spiral stands as a teacher of a single, terrifying truth. Not all mysteries are meant to be solved. It is not a puzzle waiting for a clever answer, but a dark mirror reflecting the explorer's own need for meaning back upon them. The rusted iron grate that now seals the entrance is not just a safety measure, it is a concession made by a rational civilization to an irrational fear. We seal off what we cannot categorize, labeling it dangerous, unstable, or simply ritualistic, a word we use to cage the sublime. Perhaps the earth itself is dreaming down there, and the spiral is merely the petrified shape of a god's turned back. The Garime spiral does not discriminate between the Hittite priest, the Christian mystic, or the modern tourist holding a shaking camera. It demands only that you offer your certainty as a sacrifice at the top step and trust the darkness to hold you as it held them. Cold draft breaths up from the sealed gate, carrying with it the scent of minerals older than humanity. That draft touches your skin, and for a brief moment you feel like a descendant of every initiate who ever stood here, facing the unknown. The abyss does not need to be filled. It is already a complete argument for the limits of the rational mind. We grapple with the spiral's meaning, but perhaps its meaning was always the grapple itself, the transformative struggle away from the lit world. To this day, the spiral holds its silence, tucked beneath the fairy chimneys where tourists buy their trinkets, unaware of the inverted tower beneath their feet. It remains a hidden initiation path for no one, waiting in the dark, its alcoves still sticky with the memory of ancient honey and lost prayers. If you stand at the iron grate long enough, you might feel the earth call you to step down into a story that has not yet found its final voice. And in that silent, spiraling darkness, the greatest mystery is not what lies at the bottom, but who you become during the descent.